So I will now introduce our first reader, Wellfleet Sarchild. Wellfleet Sarchild's book, Old Women Talking, was published by Passenger in 2017. She has been featured as Poet of the Week on Poetry Superhighway, Poet of the Month at the Brewster Ladies Library, and can be heard reading her poems on WCAI Poetry Sunday. Her poems appear in numerous literary journals. Poet Marge Piercy writes, "In Old Woman Talking, Wellfleet Sarchild confronts head-on the specter of aging. She wrestles honestly with fear of dementia, the loss of friends and loved ones, and demands of herself that she say yes to aging and yes to the fact of her own eventual death. This is a necessary collection and strong medicine for all of us." Please welcome Wellfleet Sarchild.
It's such an honor to be a Passenger poet. I have lots of friends who've been published by many different publishers, and I keep hearing one horror story after another. And from the first moment I submitted to Passenger, they have just been right there for me all the time. So if you're a writer and if you're over 50, Passenger's the place. I'm going to read 3 poems from my book, Old Women Talking, and then I'm going to read 2 newer poems. This is the title poem. It's called Old Women Talking. And it was an acrostic poem. It was inspired by a painting of these old women sitting on park benches and talking to each other. So just imagine a bunch of old women with all different ideas about life. Old women talking. We're talking shyly about how we still enjoy orgasms. We're talking about having no interest in sex, never have. We're talking about how rough he is, how gentle he is, how he is too fast and it hurts, how he keeps asking if it feels good, how loud we scream with pleasure and later wonder if the neighbors heard. We're talking about how much better it is with a woman. And we're glad we found this out before we passed through this life. We're talking about how wonderful love is, no matter who you love. We're talking about our wrinkles, how each line is a sign of wisdom earned. We're talking about our wrinkles, how it will cost $16,000 to look 10 years younger. We're talking about feeling invisible, how people look past us as if we have something catching. We're talking about how excited the grandchildren get to see us, and how the children love to paint with us, dance with us, sleep cradled in our arms. We're talking politics. We're worried about the environment, immigration, human rights. We're telling jokes. We're praying to the ancestors. We're singing show tunes, jazz, hip-hop. We're crying about the little boy in our church who got diagnosed with cancer. We're celebrating because now he is cancer-free. We're talking about being friends forever and how forever goes by too quick. And we have already said goodbye to too many forever friends, and it's just so damn sad to have to die. We're talking about how every day is a good day to die. And that dying will be a new adventure and a life full of adventures. We're talking, old women talking. For those of you who are from the Cape, you're probably familiar with the dune shacks out in the Province lands in Provincetown. And Chuck and I spent last week out there. This poem is actually from another time we were out there, but I just have the dunes on my mind right now. It's called The Longing to Sand. Time stops here, turns perch on my nose. Whales breach on my tongue. Seagrass sprouts between my toes. Salt water swims in my eyes. Like the sand-bleached coyote skull, I too can imagine decaying out here until all that is left are white bones and the ghosts of a satisfied. And this is the last poem, and there's a reference in here to Greta Thunberg, who is the young climate activist, and you probably all remember her at a climate conference where she confronted the world leaders about just words but no action, and she said blah blah blah. So that's the main part of this. The real stuff. I'm not a party goer, not clever, never remember jokes or understand them or think they're funny. I worry about racist or misogynist overtones and wonder if I'm going to feel compelled to call someone out. I like real people who talk about real things, the inner shadow they're healing, the time they met God in the grocery store, or saw a deer nursing her young, what they are grieving, what they are celebrating, why they are worried about their black son who was stopped by cops for a broken taillight. A book that changed their life, how they want to die and how they want to live. I like real people who are interested in the real me. How I journeyed on psychedelics to the center of all sorrow, to the center of all love. Who look at me and see the magnificence of old age, which has nothing to do with my outward appearance. I like real people who sit on the curb and share lunch with a young man whose fingers are missing from leprosy. His smile lights up the day. People who are advised to ignore beggars, but instead ignore the advice and invite hungry boys to share a pizza. People who march, protest, go to jail for what they believe. People who may be autistic, but are brilliant enough to know when world leaders are speaking blah, blah, blah. So thank you very much, and I'm going to be introducing Sandy, but I also had what I was going to say on this, and it got moved also. So, I think I need to start voting. thought I was so prepared. So our next reader is Sandy Longley. And since Sandy was a child, she has been coming to Provincetown and has recently moved here full-time, where she is writing and taking care of her twins. Previously, she lived in New York's Hudson Valley, where she was Associate Professor of Literature in the State University of New York system. Her poems have appeared in numerous literary journals, including New Millennium Writings and Spillway. In 2016, Finishing Line Press published her chapbook, Navigating the Waters. And in 2023, Passenger Books published her first full-length collection of poems, Mothernest, which was runner-up to the Henry Morgenthau First Book Poetry Contest for a poet 70 or older. Mothernest was longlisted in the Welsh-based International Book Awards. And Cape naturalist Dennis Minsky has this to say about Mothernest. Sandy Longley's very heart is revealed in her new collection of poems, Mothernest. Large and expansive, capable of breaking hearts and minds, wise, imaginative, and creative. She takes the observed world and makes it shimmer with meaning. Such a brutal, beautiful place is this world, she writes. Who could disagree? And when the heart is comfortless, we can turn to Sandy Longley, and in fact, to our inner selves, keeper of poetry. Thank you.
Well, I too would like to thank Kendra and John and Kathy and the Wellfleet Library for organizing this lovely evening. And we thank you all for coming. Well, some of you might want to be outside, but I'm not blaming you because it's just been such a beautiful day and week. But thank you for coming. I'm going to read 4 poems from this book called Mothernest. And the first one is called When a Black Bear Came to Truro. I was wondering how many people knew that experience, probably more than me, because it was probably decades ago now, wasn't it? It was probably been more than one bear, that's for sure. No, it's not that one. Not that long ago.
It was 13 years ago.
When was it?
About 13 years ago.
About 13 years ago. Well, that's just seemed to capture the imagination of the cave, didn't it? And when I heard this story, it was just also captivating. I'm from upstate New York, where bears are. We see them all the time, but I never knew that they were on the cave. So this is called When a Black Bear Came to Truro. I like to think of him swimming the canal, unnoticed, against the current, against credulity, legs stronger than any freestyler, a dark shadow in salt water, and then lumbering his maleness, his aloneness, north on 6A to Boston Beach. It was the black bear, all right, sure as you were born, said Tommy Dyer, a fisherman on the Little Eva. I like to think of him scratching his back on pitch pines, leaving scat in his wake, grubs, apples, seeds, steam rising like a signal, and him mumbling, squeaking, panting, a scent of a young sow perhaps, a scent of Wampanoag fires, of ancient deer bones, swales of genetic memory guiding him back home under a purple sky. Part humor, part magician, that was Bear. copy of this, or a draft of this poem, and I was trying to think, why did the bear keep doing this? And a friend of mine who is not a reader, who doesn't read poetry, said, maybe the bear was coming home. Of course, that makes such perfect sense to be so driven to come home like that. This next poem is called Amor Mundi, and which you all probably know. This looks like a great craft, Love of the World. And I dedicated this to my daughter Annie, who recently had a set of twin girls. And we were taking them for a walk one day in Orleans, where she lives, on the rail trail. And a small turtle was crossing the road. And we say young because it fits the poem, so that's why I'm going to say that. Her hormones were probably still just jumping off the page, and mine were just looking at her. And we all became very protective of this turtle. And she left her twins with me in the stroller and ran out into the middle of, is it Old Cape Cod? What was it called? Old Colony Way, yes. Lots of traffic, lots of trucks. And she just ran out there and picked up the turtle, and we brought the turtle home and put it in a bowl with some water and lettuce and strawberries. And the girls were old enough to just be fascinated by this. And it was a very moving thing, which prompted this poem. Agnes does those wonderful signs, watch out for turtle crossings, in so many of the towns around here, which really speaks so well of the Cape, doesn't it? So, Amor Mundi, dedicated to Annie. Dear Box Turtle, I understand your road crossings. I too move with purpose and deliberation. I too am often hard-shelled. There are berries and grasses to forage, eggs to lay, clutches to disguise in the underbrush, predators to flee, ponds to clean, and yet, here we are. Let me help you cross the road. Like a Valkyrie in black leggings and silver, I will stop Route 6 traffic with a raised arm and a fierce stare. I will pick you up, never by the tail, and bring you to the direction you're going. Who would renounce jubilation, asked Rilke, especially for the lowly? By that I mean I dreamed of resting with you by water's edge, both of us emerging from our colorful carapaces, stretching our turtlenecks up into the soft warm light, a chorus of bullfrogs assuming their brave songs. Let's see. At my post office in Delmar, New York, where I'm originally from, there's a man at the counter who's very droll. And when the post office started to having to recite all those rules for us, what's in the package and where's it going, and they're trying to increase the rate for, if it's something valuable. And I swear I can see him going to another level when a customer comes up to him, like, I have to say this again. And he's just so funny about it. But he does it, but he's a jokester also, so I always try to get his line. So this is called Solace at the P.O. So it's my turn, and I place an envelope on the counter. The clerk asks, does this package contain any hazardous liquid? Only 1,000 tears, I reply. Is there anything flammable or breakable? Just my heart, I say. Would you like to send express mail for an additional $7.50? Actually, I prefer a slow delivery, maybe in a canvas saddlebag, on a dappled mare, rambling through mountains, through valleys lush and deep, pausing for long drinks in stony creeks. How about insurance? We both know there's no insurance, no deductible for matters like this. I know what I have given, what I have received. He glances at the customer line lengthening, impatience spreading like a virus. I want him to close his window and ask me to meet him out back. He'll be wearing cowboy boots and smell like fresh-cut locust burrow. He'll drape his tattooed arm, while or around me, offer a cigarette and say, "A dog walks into a bar." I wrote this poem about 10 years ago, actually, but I've upped it. I've revised it to be a little more current because it was a crowd pleaser, to tell you the truth. People like this poem, so I hope you do too. It's called Stand Back. And here it goes. Stand back. Atmospheric rivers streak the sky, reports the LA meteorologist. Fear to begin the day. What you thought was an errant poppy seed burrows in your ankle. Laptop antivirus warnings leak onto your fingertips. Carpenter ants devour the attic rafters. Cicadas return to beat against the windows. Blackbirds rain down from the Midwestern sky. You dream of ubiquitous respiratory diseases. Even at Shop and Save, lingering among the leaks and romaine, you hear the rumble of thunder, the crackle of lightning, and then a disembodied voice from somewhere in the stained ceiling tiles. Produce misting is about to begin. Stand back. And you do, grateful for the warning, because where else can you hear with such clarity, such urgency, how to behave in the face of the deluge? I taught English in a two-year college, and one of my colleagues that I'm still in touch with, and Fran, includes very nicely this poem in her poetry class. And students more often than not say, "How does this sandy, lonely woman know about my life?" That's the ultimate compliment. So I think that was 4. And I thought I would read a new poem that I wrote very recently. I have a little kayak, and one of my greatest joys is to paddle around in the harbor, where there are lots of seals, as you all know, and they bring me great joy. And what I like best about them is often when I'm out there, I hear their breathing, their breath, before I actually see them. Right? I mean, it's just magical, isn't it? And it brings me peace in this troubled world that we're living in. So this poem is called Peace. It's a villanelle, which has lots of stuff you have to consider to write, right? And I can't even remember all of it. I won't bore you, but you'll hear a lot of repetition in here, and that's part of the scheme. So it's not because I ran out of words. I just read them. I like words. Okay, this is called Peace. A seal rises, her breath the sound of peace. From your small boat you sense her servicing, this sea-slick, gray mammal ascends with ease. No fog, the sun has risen in the east. You crave contact. Her eye is soft, black, shining. A seal rises, her breath the sound of peace. The beach isn't burning, no orders to cease fire, to put down your weapons, no killing. The sea-slick gray mammal ascends with ease. Trolling for fish, trolling for sheer caprice. Listen, inhale, exhale, you, her, breathing. A seal rises, her breath the sound of peace. Skyward like Tibetan throat singers, geese V their way in reconnaissance, honking. This seal's slick gray mammal ascends with ease. Water, hope, silence. This beautiful lease on life. For peace comes dropping slow, yearning. A seal rises, her breath the sound of peace. This sea-slick gray mammal ascends with ease. Before I end, I just do want to give credit to William Butler Yeats.
Yeah.
For that beautiful line there, for peace comes dropping slow.
Yeah.
Gorgeous, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, well, I think that's my time. And thank you very much for listening. And I'm now going to introduce let's see, who am I going to introduce? Fran, who grew up as a farmer's daughter in the Shorr Mountains, a retired psychotherapist and addictions counselor. She lives in Ithaca, New York with her rescue cats and her husband. Her book, Grandfather's Mandolin, published by Passenger in 2021, was runner-up in Passenger's Henry Morgenthau III First Book Prize Contest for a writer 70 years or older. Since then, her poetry has won numerous prizes, including American Book Fest's Book Award in 2021 for spiritual poetry. About Grandfather's Mandolin, poet David Keplinger writes, "Sometimes a soul will come along and feel the sacred in the ordinary, and if they write poetry, like this does, carries the recognizable weight and texture of truth." For Fran, the Morgenthau Award meant that her poems are relatable in these divided times, and could perhaps inspire what connects us in spite of our, or because of our own cultures, history, and colorful characters we call family and friends.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Kendra and Passenger family. Thank you, Wellfleet Library. It's beautiful here. I spent my early years in a big old farmhouse, living with my grandparents, parents, cousins, siblings, great uncle, other assorted people, and I'd like to meet some of them tonight in my poetry. My first poem is called Dear Grandmother Zipporah. I want to sail back to 1917, visit the motherland where you learned, bring extra sweaters, chocolate, crackers, just in case. Sail back to 1920, enter the rowboat that carried you and young Moisha, grandfather-to-be, to witness another vessel miles upstream, the neighbors who didn't make it. To return, toss stones of remembrance into the river, recite Kaddish for names drowned. I want to be caged in the Bucharest jail and fathom the fright of bribing a soldier to escape then haggle over a lace dress, wedding ring that'll someday grace a daughter's finger. I'd like to rescue Grandpa's mandolin so that I could hear him strum Yiddish folk tunes, the instrument restrung so that his great-grandson could wail rock songs for a high school band. I'd like to restamp immigration papers that stated your name as Pauline, not Zipporah. Time travel to first sightings of the mother of all exiles, lifting her torch, lighting your tired, your poor, as you struggled with a new language, stepped onto the dock, dirty and pregnant, with my favorite uncle, to hold sweat-pearled hands as we walk, freeing long, deep breaths. My next poem is called Tonderable's Lamp. I was keeper of her light, proud of my polishings, until Blackie the old cat managed a spectacular jump one night, the antique bowl of the torchy air splintering, the hand-painted flowers, fluted edges, just shards. I pictured my great aunt, how she might have perused the jagged pieces, how she dealt with the shatterings, crystal nights, raised home, separated families, the way she imbued what was broken, irreplaceable with new light. Looking at scattered fragments in my kitchen, I realize it's not the glass shade I breathe, but this woman who held me in her lap while I tried on hats she'd sewn in the sweatshop, fascinators with feathers, bird-cage netting, cottony rosettes. If things aren't as you wish them as they are, she'd mutter in a language I couldn't quite understand. My dad served as a tail gunner in World War II on B-24. He was very proud of that. On the day that he was to fly on a mission to Palestine, the oil fields in Romania, my dad got ill. His best buddy at the time, Walter Zablonsky was his name, stepped in and didn't make it. So I wanted to dedicate this poem to both my dad and Walter Zablonsky. My sister and I have tried to find the Zablonsky family through the internet. We've not been able to do that, so I can at least offer a poem. And this is called My Father's Medallion, which I take at all important occasions like tonight. My father's medallion. He wore it the day he caught pneumonia and couldn't fly the mission over Palestine. The Black Sunday, his best buddy Walter took his place. I found the medal in a closet after my father's death, kept it by Tonderable's pearls and Grandma's ring. Brought it to court when I testified, its metal steely, cold under my vest. The medallion dangled near my heart while Mother slept in the ICU. And when the doctor ordered a sonogram of my breast, I visualized its surely goodness and mercy engraved on one side. The April I lost the medallion, my brother died. At his burial, I imagined my father crouched in the tail of a B-24 somewhere over France. How he winced at each firing. How his hand felt the coin through fatigues, as if the medal's prayer thou preparest a table could steady his plane speeding among gun-metal clouds. This next poem I wrote in honor of my brother, my young brother, Michael. Michael was diagnosed with autism at a time when not a lot was known about autism. He died a few years ago, and here's my poem for Michael. It's called Whirlpool. Michael's my brother who doesn't like touch, so we both lounge by the old washer, watch limp, wet clothes come alive, as if we view a Disney animation. Fill, wash, agitate, drain, pause. Michael, 4 years old, autistic, fascinated by the cycles. He can't talk. My cousin Sylvia telling us Einstein didn't speak until he was 5 or 6. Doctors explaining to my family of tangled cerebral circuitry. Soon our parents will surrender my brother to an institution, and we will have no words for our sorrow. But on this day, Michael doesn't run or circle the edges of the kitchen, and I'm not leaving for college or in my room. My brother lets me enter his world where he listens, spellbound to thumps and swooshes. We share harmonics of spins, their safety and balm. Hope my presence comforts or assuages like the syncopated waters. As the machine switches into frenzy, he winds and unwinds strings on one finger, then raises a hand to the fluorescence. He rocks back and forth in his chair, inner and outer drums drum on, waterfalls trickle down, we breathe in sync. Siblings, side by side, spending the afternoon, fill, wash, agitate, drain, sacred pause. This next poem is about my mom. She had an odd sense of humor, especially as she got older. And this poem is called Crazy Glue. She holds, and it's based on something that my mother actually said to me one night. Crazy Glue. She holds her broken tooth like a pearl. I could glue it, poison myself. Mourners complimenting how I look in the casket. We talk. Where papers are, how her body falters, bone by bone. The way her fingers stiffen in the rec room when she knits snowflakes or plays bingo. The caller, her grim reaper, who promises the jackpot. We watch Antiques Roadshow. Imagine cousins repairing to the kitchen, restored on Heppel-white chairs. Later she naps, one hand on her lifeline, another on the lazy boy. Television clicker, phone, family by her side. Everything's in place. Here's a brand new poem. Has a long title. After seeing pictures of the broken Francis Scott Key Bridge, March 27th of this year. Into candlelight, I say names of the dead: Maynor, Miguel, Jose, Alejandro, Dorlian, Carlos, young migrants who fell into the Patapsco River, water sharpening after the barge Dolly collapsed Baltimore's bridge. I conjure the metal of men filling holes nights so weary travelers like me could travel home. I think of my grandpa Morris, dead over 40 years ago, traverse the decades to visit him one more time, to ask how it was to hammer on the George Washington Bridge. It's hard to deconstruct time, but there he is, late 1920s, lunchbox balanced on scaffolding. He gestures to crewmates. Phew, it's hot. He wipes sweat off his brow, then shouts, Fransanutsky, skinny girl, let's taste my pickles at Grandma's table with all the cousins. Then we'll sing. I share news of Baltimore's tragedy. Ask about his bridge building travails, of the forgotten 12 immigrants in his crew who lost their lives during construction. Were wires loose? What a fog or wind over the roily Hudson? The men's names, homelands, Grandpa sighs, so many questions. He stares at pilings, the cables and catwalks. I regret, as a young girl, I didn't ask about his first job in America. Bridgemates, fear of heights, how I miss him when the forsythia bloom. Seder season, passings over from the angels of death. Miss ancestral stories of liberation, exodus from narrow straits, the way our fingers dipped into sweet wine, our heads bowing for the lost, for strangers like the Latinos of Baltimore to share meals with us in a welcoming home. Once, I tell Grandpa, I saw him stare past the chicken barns, whisper to clouds in a language I couldn't decipher. Did he invoke family in Ukraine, or the brotherhood of Iron Men steeled into memory? Burdens carried painstakingly, like the pillars that rose, swaying, lacing, templed toward the heavens. Here's my last poem called Lace. Lace. After her death, I rummaged through the dresser, guilty like an 8-year-old fingering someone else's nightgowns. At the bottom of the dresser, small ovals of black lace. Grandmother wore them to temple. They reminded her of everything old and musty, like her sister Ruffle's yellow-gray hair, of how their mother crocheted fine thread into ebony snowflakes. During prayer, the elderly ladies pinned them onto their perms like mournful flags. Now it's my turn. Hold each lace up to candles. Hold the empty spaces. Thank you. Thank you. It was an honor to be here tonight. It's my pleasure now to introduce Kathy Shorr, who grew up on Mount Healthy, Ohio, and Knoxville, Tennessee. and has lived on the Outer Cape most of her adult life. She is this year's winner of the Joe Bovea Outermost Poetry Contest and has worked recently out or forthcoming in the Atlanta Review, Loch Raven Review, Cape Cod Review, and Panjagus. She's a longtime staffer at the Center for Coastal Studies and a trustee of the fabulous Wellfleet Public Library. Thank you.
So much. I'm just going to read one piece, and it has a little bit of background because it's in 6 parts. So just so you know, the parts are going to fit together, but some of the things they consist of are, one is the date palm seeds that were 2,000 years old, found during archaeological digs. 2, my friend Nisi's stem cell transplant last year, and if anybody's asking, she is fine and recovered well, and now has strange mix of DNA. 3 is a friend that some of you know, Paul Bowen, who was an excellent beach picker for many years. 4 is what's called the UNESCO Official Intangible Heritage List, because it's always good to learn something, right, when you're writing a poem. And that is strange mix of things that are, they're kind of hard to grasp, but we know we don't know wisdom. And 5, has anybody ever seen carpool karaoke with James Corden? Someone, right. This is an episode, basically James Corden would drive around in cars with some fabulous, well-known performer and sing their songs with them. In this case, he was with Paul McCartney in his Liverpool hometown on the ride. Resurrections for Nisi. 1. Oh, to be soaked in hormones like the 2,000-year-old pit of a date found in the rubble of Masada, 1966. Incidental. Plucked by some volunteer, sweat-drenched, pickaxing under desert sun in search of Herod's bedchamber. Then 40 years it waited in a closet, re-watered, tucked into cheesecloth, and planted in a greenhouse pot. 2. Metal poles sprout bags of saline, Zofran, Copazine, special oncology mix whipped up to counteract the chemo's steady drip that kills your last gone bad white cells while you nap and wait for some complete stranger embryos to swim their mission through your veins and seed into your marrow. Day 14 of your stem cell transplant. Kind of tedious, the wait, until they replicate in you. How many days till you can open a window? 3. Jesus walked on the water. Nick Walendo walked a tightrope over Niagara Falls. Paul Bowen walked the sand flats of Provincetown each low tide, twice a day, nearly 30 years. He dug his clam rake in the salty murk, plucked 18th century pale clay pipes fishermen once clenched between stained teeth. He found smooth obsidian bones, the inner ears of pilot whales once driven ashore and killed for their oil. My favorite, sculpted bits of broken porcelain he glued together like the pieces of a curving jigsaw puzzle. He did this for 11 years, till he brought it back to life. The Chinese vase it once had been, only 3 pieces missing from the top. 4. After 56 days, the greenhouse seed began to grow. 3 years later, it was a 3-foot date palm they called Methuselah. They explored the Qumran caves and found more seeds, married ancient ones from Syria to those from Egypt, Iran, Iraq. The first year's harvest, 111 plump dates. The second, 700. Shitty chills. Rebirth of the dates made UNESCO's official intangible heritage list of practices to save, along with rumba from the Congo and how to bind the overlapping planks with rope to build the clicker boats of Scandinavia. 5. I hope you liked the episode of Carpool Karaoke I emailed. James Gordon walks into a sluggish Liverpool afternoon pub, pulls a pint, asks someone to pick a jukebox tune, and boom! Across the room, a crash of guitar chords, the curtain lifts, and here's Paul McCartney with his band. They swing into "It's Been a Hard Day Tonight," and people jump. I mean, they jump and thrust their cell phones up, and faces press against the window glass outside the pub, and people sprint inside like it's 1966 all over again. 3 generations morph to teenagers, swivel their hips, their hands lift up, the words spill out of their mouths as if the lyrics were tattooed inside. Love, love me do, they sing along. You know I love you. Air swaying with the sound. 6. Who doesn't want to live forever? Who doesn't want to live forever? To be a brand new date palm, opening our arms, bound by the pleasures of an arid land. Take care.